The Double Blues by I Knew a Man on AO3. Episode 16. Chapter 11. Hostage Situation. A sharp pain pulsed through Izuku's head, forcing him into consciousness. He emits a low groan. God, that's sore. He attempts to blink open his eyes, but can barely manage to squint. Strong lights accost him from above, blinding. Izuku snaps his eyes shut again and lets out another drawn-out moan. That's bright. Far too bright. He can even feel how powerful they are through his eyelids, coloring the skin dark red. He hears noises in the distance, a muffled sound of scuffling. It grows clearer and clearer by the second, until finally, Izuku can make out words being exchanged between two voices. I don't know, okay? It was dark. I couldn't see shit. One complains. You were supposed to take the one with wild hair. Another hisses. They both have wild hair, the first voice says. It's the one with attitude. They both had attitude. Where's the attitude now, huh? A particularly hard kick suddenly embeds itself into Izuku's stomach. He gasps at the contact and curls in on himself, his insides aflame with pain. Where is it? The guy is as limp as a dead fish. He was vicious when I kidnapped him. Izuku shakes viciously. He was lying, his entire body trembling, hands curled into tight fists, the tendons in his neck tensing. The hit took him completely by surprise. He barely considered enough to be aware of his surroundings, let alone fend off any stray attacks. 'Cause he was trying to trick you, the voice states in a dangerous rumble, which he clearly managed. Izuku hears the faint sound of boots paddling away, followed by a sharp order of, tie him up for now. We'll discuss your mistake later, in private. This time around, Izuku's more prepared for what's to come. He tries to roll up further into himself, but suddenly his hands pull him apart and roughly hustle him up. His head thumps against solid material at the same time, when his stomach gets sored and gets pierced by something hard and blunt, electing a wince. He guesses that a shoulder's right there, which really is great considering it isn't too long ago his belly was accosted by a knee. Looks like it'll be sporting some particularly bruising. Joy. He isn't awarded as much time as he'd like for his internal winging, because mere moments later he's deposited back down, somewhat surprised when his back doesn't hit the floor. He's too slow to catch onto the situation, and as soon it's too slow in reacting to his hands being pounded behind to a chair and being sat onto. They get tied up real tight, so hard that it feels like the blood circulation will cut off at any moment now. Izuku's weakly struggling does little to loosen him, earning him nothing more than another hit to the side, which has him wincing again. God, his middle area is really getting beaten today. He's so preoccupied with the ache that he doesn't even clock onto the culprit leaving him and shutting the door, nor does he clock onto the other occupants of the room. He struggles with regulating his breathing. In, out. In, out. An acute twist in his stomach has him gritting his teeth. A defending scrape sound close by. Izuku gingerly peers towards a direction. He clocks onto a figure, looking to be in a similar situation to him, bound to a chair. Wild hair, exhausted eye. Shinso! Izuku snaps up in his seat. He quickly realizes his mistake when a sharp pain tears through his side again. Fuck. That's gonna be sensitive for a while. Izuku attempts to shout again, an experiment, but ends up coughing instead. His throat is parched, scratchy. A stinging sensation works its way around his neck. He shakes his head slightly. He doesn't have the time to figure it out. Izuku tries once more. Shinso! Shinso, it's you, it's fucking you. Shinso couldn't do much in his position, but awkwardly nod. He looks to be bound up real tight, with the addition of a cloth wrapped around his mouth and nose. His eyes, the only thing betraying any emotion, are as watery as ever. I'm so fucking happy to see you alive. You have no idea. Izuku murmurs with a shaky smile. I was losing my shit, man, when you didn't show up to our pool night. Dude, I almost caused havoc. It was midnight, and I was beside myself with worry, calling the police station and trying to submit a missing persons report. They couldn't accept it, though. Wouldn't do it unless someone else could corroborate my story about you missing. I almost cried out of frustration. He interjects his relentless rambling with an empty laugh. Weirdly enough, I decided to call Bakugo at a last resort, and it's lucky I did. The guy joined me when looking for you, meeting me up at your place to check up on you. And even afterwards, when I was talking myself about my crazy conspiracy theories, he waited for me. Throughout his speech, Shinso's eyes had been watching him closely. Their change is barely perceptible, but Izuku could see it when he reveals certain parts of his story. His worry evident in his frown of his brows, his guilt in the aversion of his gaze, his sensitive smile at the corner of his eye. It feels so relieving to be able to catch on to those expressions in person once more. Izuku hadn't realized how much he had valued them, not until they were suddenly gone. Honestly, he sighs into the quiet. I'm so relieved you're safe. Again, those eyes crease up into what Izuku recognizes to be a smile. It kills Izuku that he can't shuffle his way over and embrace his friend in a particularly big hug. Instead, they're forced to sit at opposite ends and simply share hidden smiles. Honestly, Izuku is beyond happy that Shinso is safe. But there's a nagging voice in the back of his mind that tells him he won't know for how much longer that will be. It grows significantly by every second of silence, until finally it takes over the forefront of his mind. It finally kicks Izuku's detective instinct into gear, which have been dormant ever since he saw Shinso was alive. He tears his gaze away from the man and lets it wander around. He takes his time in assessing their surroundings and drawing conclusions about their whereabouts. They're in a room scantily lit by a single light bolt. It's dingy. It's a bit damp. There's a singular bed on the corner of the room, not far from either Shinso or Izuku. It's a small room. Not much to be exploited from where they are being held. But all Izuku can reckon is that the room is not being used for anything of importance, and the reason he and Shinso are kept here is only for convenience. He wonders if he was meant to be held here originally, or if they would have locked their hostage up somewhere much safer if they had actually succeeded in capturing the right target. Izuku spares a brief moment to think about Bakugo and what the man must be dealing with right now. He's most likely hurt, definitely angry, at Izuku's actions, at him being taken hostage instead of Bakugo, by the very criminal organization they were trying to dismantle, at the fact that they were now separated with no way of contacting each other. Izuku shoves the intrusive thought away. He can't afford to dwell on the actions of the past right now, not when he's stuck in his current situation. The number one priority at this moment should be to figure out his and Shinso's current situation and how to get out of it safely and soundly. Izuku glances over to Shinso with a slightly guilty expression. Shinso, I'm so sorry, but I need to ask you some questions. The man rolls his eyes. This is serious, I promise. Izuku defends on a hush. I just need to understand the situation we're in. Listen, do you remember how they took you? Shoda hesitates momentarily before giving a single nod. Was it at your place? The flat? Another nod. Did they say anything about stalking out the place? This time, the man shakes his head, accompanied with a half shrug of the shoulders. Izuku allows himself a moment to mull on what he has learned before continuing. Did they tell you anything about their operations? Shinso's eyes narrowed before swaying over to the corner. After a few seconds, he repeats the half-hearted shrug. Izuku gently leans forward in his seat. Did you maybe overhear something? Again, the man falls back onto the sludge, but midway through it, it changes into several nods of the head. Izuku slowly settles himself back into his chair, careful not to further agonize his side. So the criminals had snatched Shinso right from his home and brought him here. Probably. He doesn't reckon they took him elsewhere before depositing him in this place. If Izuku has to assume, he would say that they were being held in a location they use frequently. Criminals like these wouldn't risk holding hostages outside of a place they aren't familiar with. Besides, if they were going to kidnap Bakugo as originally planned, it would make sense to keep him somewhere much, much, much more secure. His mind lingers on the notion of them wanting to kidnap Bakugo in the first place. He can't put his finger on what their reasoning behind the decision was. As far as Izuku was aware, the Naomi gang doesn't have any connections to the pro heroes, let alone Bakugo himself. How would they have learned about him? Why did they wish to kidnap him? How did they think they were going to take him? Izuku and his accosting outside of Shinso's apartment, nowhere near either of them of their places of residence. That must have meant that the gang knew they were going to be visiting Shinso's apartment. But they have been there previously after Shinso had been taken. So why wouldn't the gang have taken their chances then and grabbed them the first time around? Because it was daylight. Because there were clear witnesses outside and about. In fact, Izuku would bet that they hadn't counted on him and Bakugo playing Shinso a visit the first time around. They had simply gotten lucky. As to why they had decided to stake out Shinso's flat after he was taken, well, it was likely that they simply wanted to keep an eye on the place in case someone caught along to the mess with their operation. Someone like a police detective and a pro hero in training. But if they had witnessed Izuku and Bakugo visiting Shinso's home before, how come they haven't been able to differentiate between them when he was kidnapped? He and Bakugo looked as different as day and night. There is no way anyone could mistaken them for any other, even from a distance. He doesn't understand it. Had they even bothered looking either of them up after they visited Shinso's flat, which they were probably staking out? Or had they done so, but then they realized who Bakugo was and focused all their efforts on taking him in? But again, it doesn't explain why they would want to kidnap him. The sound of Shinso rocking the chair forth brings Izuku out of his thoughts. He looks at the man and receives several meaningful glances cast down. He frowns at the behavior for far too long before he hedges a guess. Your mouth. Shinso nods vigorously and replies. He keeps his tossed glance down at his mouth, intercepting them with purposeful looks at Izuku. Izuku frowns deepen even more. Your mouth cover. That's when the reply is positive. He inquires further. They take it off? Shinso seemed to sag with relief before giving him a nod. They take it off. Izuku murmurs lowly. When? Shinso throws him an unimpressed glare. Sorry. Izuku flushes. They take it off when you need to speak? He receives a shake of the head. When they need to speak to you? Another shake of the head, twinged with a judgmental look. Izuku ignores it in favor of more guessing. When you have to eat. He finally receives a grateful nod of the head. Izuku almost jumps for joy in his seat at the information, but barely manages to remind himself of his sore stomach. Instead, he swallows around his dry throat and inclines his head. When you have to eat. Got it, so we speak then. Shinso gives him another nod. Right. We'll speak then. Izuku confirms, lips lifting into an elated smile. It's good to see you, Shinso. They sit in silence. Shinso, because he physically cannot speak with his mouth covering, holding back his every word. Izuku, because he's too occupied with his own thoughts, breaking down every angle of their location and how to possibly break free. Alright, okay. Interesting. This is... It was... Well, why... Now Izuku has me wondering, why? Why did they want to kidnap Bakugo specifically? It makes no sense. It really truly makes no sense. It's not my turn, okay. Sorry, this whole time as I've been recording, I am currently in a D&D campaign. Yeah, currently, right now. I'm in the phone call right now. They're right there, they're just talking. Apparently we're breaking and entering, which is quite interesting. I'll say it's quite interesting. It's quite fun. But moving on to this, why would they want to kidnap Bakugo? That's my why Bakugo specifically? What? I need to know. What do you guys think? What do you guys think in the comments? Tell me what your theories are, because I'm dry of theories. I'm also running on like 1 hour of sleep. But yeah, what is it? What is it? What do they want from Bakugo? What do they need from Bakugo? Why Bakugo? You know, like, why specifically him? Wouldn't they want to get the detective who's currently looking into them and not the, like, I mean, I get why they want both, but like, why specifically Bakugo? Anyways, as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.